Good day to you. This is Michael Didier. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. I found such interesting things this week. One of my Facebook friends wrote me and asked, who is Seir? Well, he's Seir the Horites. But who's Seir, she says. I went back and forth with her until I understood really what she's asking. Where does Seir come from? Who is he? Well, I started doing some research. And you know what? The only place I could find the research was in Yasher. Let me get to that. We left off last week. Remember the week before last, we left off with Esau getting his head cut off by Cushim, the deaf and dumb son of Dan. We warred with the sons of Esau and chased them back to their land. Killed a bunch of them, 80 men it says. It says Joseph prevailed and he took this man, Zepho. This is going to be an important man today. This man, Zepho, right here. He took Zepho, ben Eliphaz, ben Esau. Ooh, that's another thing that came to me this week. I went to look. We were talking about Ben, Benim, Benay. When it says Ben, it gets translated as the son of. But it's really saying Zepho, ben Eliphaz, ben Esau. He took him captive. Brought him to Egypt, put him in irons. He became a servant to, maybe it was even Joseph's seed that he was serving. But here's what I wanted you to see. Down here, it says, and it came to pass on the third day they assembled the sons of Seir. Remember, that's where the Esauites, Esau's seed, were living. He had made a marriage covenant with Seir through his daughter, when he took his daughter, Ahiblamah. And he gave his daughters, we don't often talk about his daughters, but he gave his daughters to the Horites. Horite. What is a Horite? Who is Seir? You know, I always thought, and that's because really I hadn't done the digging that I was supposed to. Remember we talked about Mount Hor? I thought maybe the Horites got their name from Mount Hor. But I'd be wrong. And I may have said that in the past. I apologize if I did. It's not correct. If anything, Mount Hor got its name from the Horites. But where did the Horites get their name? Here's a note I put together just for you and for me. I did some research on this. I thought, oh, this is so very interesting. Look what it says. This is Yasher 10:28. And Seir, ben Hor. It says Hur, H-U-R, ben Hur, ben Hivi. Remember, we're not talking about Hittites. We're talking about Hivites, another one of the sons of Canaan. A Hittite was the sons of Het. This is a Hivite, Kevite that we're talking about. They start with, as does Hor, with a Het. It's har, 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 har. You want to be a guttural sound. It gets translated often as an H instead of a KH. And so we find it hard to see. Oftentimes, remember when you do this transliteration from turning Hebrew words into English words, we translated this one as Hur, H-U-R. But it could just as easily be H-O-R. And this is where Hor comes from. He is a Horite. Seir ben Hor, Hor, son of Hevi, son of Canaan, found a valley opposite Mount Paran and built a city there. And he and his 7 sons, they're all listed in Genesis 36. And his household dwelt there, and he called the name of the city which he built Seir, according to his name. And that is the land of Seir to this day. So that's where he comes from. So in that context, a woman who comes from a woman who comes from Seir can still be called a Hivite because she's of the descendants that are coming down through them, if she's one of the daughters of those guys. You see what's going on? So a Horite can be a Hivite. A Horite can be a Canaanite. It all has to do with the breakdown of the seed. Oh, so very interesting, because sometimes we've been confused. Is he a Horite? Is he a Hivite? Well, a Horite is a Hivite. We didn't get it because I didn't see it. Well, that's one of the things that is very interesting. So when we talk about Seir, the Horite, we're actually talking about this. Seir, let me do it like this. Control X. We can say Seir equals S-E-I-R, Control V. The Kori, the Korite. Kori. Here is in Yasher 30. Just a couple verses to help solidify this in your minds. It says, in the 6th year, Esau took for a woman, in addition to his other women, Ohiblamah, the daughter of Zibeon. Now, there's another word that's hard because it says Zibeon someplace and Zebeon other places. The Hivite. Well, how does a Hivite? How can he be making a covenant with somebody if he's marrying somebody, the Hivite? And Esau brought her to the land of Canaan. Well, aren't the Hivites already in the land of Canaan? That's what I thought, because she's part of Canaan. Isn't all of Canaan down there? No, they're not. Here's part of Canaan that's down in Seir. This is the people that she's marrying, that he married. He married into Seir's family. Seir had a son Zibeon, and it's Zibeon's daughter whom he took. Or maybe it was his sister, I forget, but it's real close, near relative. Then it says, Horite, really Korite, probably you could say it, Korite, if you wanted to put it into English, seems to be synonymous, used synonymously with Hittite. Well, because a Korite is a whoops, I said Hittite. That is a Hivite. Don't want to confuse you. Kor, here's how it would be transliterated, strictly transliterated, because there's only 2 consonants in this name. Het, Resh, is translated as Hor, H-U-R, or H-O-R. Again, it's hard to see sometimes. And the Kor is where the word Korite or Horite, see there it gets hard again because we've got the KH being transliterated instead of a K as an H. So we get so far, we got H-O instead of K-U. And it makes it even further harder for us to understand, for me to understand it anyway. I assume it does it to you also. At any rate, I hope you find this interesting. I put it's hard because the vowels and even the consonants change depending on who's translating it. In this context, a Korite is also a Hivite, but not all Hivites are Korites. Very interesting. I hope you find this something that you can grab onto and hang on to it. It's something that we've got to learn. I was talking to Carissa here just before we got started. It's kind of like watching a play, but not hearing or reading the program or the playbill. She just said, you got to watch the whole play if you don't have the playbill to find out who the characters are and how they fit together. But if you got the playbill, it begins to make more sense. Now, the other one that I want to talk to you about was these guys right here. The East's seed, the children of the East. Who are they? I found that this week too. The East seed are all, here it is right here. Let me just open this thing up for you. The East seed are all Abraham's seed through Keturah. Look what it says here in Yasher 62:15. I don't know if we're going to get that far today. It says, and Midian's seed, remember Midian, he's one of the third-born son of Abraham through Keturah. Midian's seed sent to all their brethren, the East seed. All their brethren, the East seed. As soon as I read that, I thought, oh, this is Keturah's sons. Abraham's sons through Keturah. And then I finished the sentence. And all their brethren, all Keturah's seed came to assist Midian to fight with Moab. So the East seed that we're talking about are the sons of Abraham through Keturah. Midian's brethren. Like I said, Midian was the fourth-born, third-born son. Let's take a look at it. These are the guys we're talking about. That would be Genesis 25. Here it is. Zimran, Yokshan, Midian, Medan, and Midian. There's Midian, fourth-born son. Now we know for sure what it is. But he had seed because those sons had sons too, and that's why we're counting them as seed. These are the seed of Keturah given to Abraham. Now, we can understand better who these players are in our story. It helps me immensely. Well, let's continue our review if you don't mind. I'll try and be as brief as I can. Here, we're talking about Zepho. And Zepho, the son of Elvaz, and his men were slaves in Egypt. They increased their pains. They came to fight. And every time they fought with us, Esau's people fought with us, we increased the pains on Zepho and those 50 men. Here we have Angeas. When we fought with them, we annihilated. Remember, Seir, the sons of Seir's seed, and Esau's seed came to Egypt to fight with us. They wanted to free Zepho and their 50 men. But they got wasted. They were destroyed. And the injury was so great on them that Seir lost many of their mighty men. And so what then they're doing is they're saying to Esau's seed, you got to go back. You got to go away from us. This is not working out for us. We've lost our mighty men. I think they're getting concerned that Esau's seed is going to take over their land. And that's exactly what happened. So they begin to fight. Esau's seed begins to fight with Seir's seed. And Seir's actually doing pretty well. But Esau is going to send to this man Angeas, king of Africa. And he sent men. And the battle still didn't go Esau's way. He was losing. Maybe they just had a second battle. It still didn't go. Now he's going to send again to Angeas. Who's Angeas? We're going to talk about that in a moment too. It says, king of Diblama. We're going to see he's the king of Africa. Diblama is Africa. So when he sends more people, so here is a consortium going on between Angeas and Esau. They've got a covenant together. The third time they fought, Esau prevailed, and Esau killed all the sons of Seir. There were some that were still living. He didn't wipe them out completely, but He killed the sons of Seir. He took their homes. He took their women. He took their flocks, their bullocks, their goods, everything belonging to Seir, and divided the land between the 5 sons of Esau. He took, what did it say up right here on the top? 50 young lads and damsels. The lads, the men, became slaves, Avadim, and the damsels became their Nashim, women. They married them, took the damsels to make more sons of Esau. Well, at this point, remember, there was some betrayal that went on when Esau fought Seir. Some of Esau's men, they had allegiances with Seir. They loved their women. And some of them actually turned and fought against their brethren for Seir. Well, they got so upset with that they said, we will not have one of our brethren rule over us. Instead, what it says, verse 39, but a strange man who is not of their brethren, for the souls of Esau's seed were embittered, every man against his son, brother, friend, on account of the evil that they sustained from their brethren when they fought with Seir's seed. Well, their first king, look at who it is. Just came to me this morning. It says there was a man there from the people of Angeas, king of Dinahaba. His name was Bela, son of Beor. Hear that? Bela, son of Beor, is from where? Dinahaba, Africa. Do you know who Bela, son of Beor, is? Remember, he's going to rule for 30 years until they go down to fight with us again. But look at who Bela, son of Beor, is. He's from Dinahaba. Look what it says here. This is a note I just found this morning and thought about this morning. Bela may be Balaam ben Beor's, Balaam, son of Beor's older brother. This man is old enough to rule in Esau's kingdom. He's older than his brother. But very shortly, we're going to see Balaam, son of Beor, be introduced. Let me read what it says. This is Yasher 61. And amongst the servants of Angeas, where's Angeas? Dinahaba was a youth, 15 years old. Balaam, son of Beor, was his name, and the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft. How interesting. They chose this man. What was his name? Bela. They, Esau's seed, chose Bela to rule over them. Why? Because he was beautiful and comely, wise in all wisdom, a man of sense and counsel. Here they're calling Balaam, son of Beor, 15 years old, a wise man. What was the other things they said about him? His name was, he was wise and understood the art of witchcraft. Not a strong selling point in my mind. But this is sons of Beor. This man Beor must have been quite an individual. Well, when Bela became king, look what it says. Verse 43. They spread out a sheet, and they brought him each man earrings of gold, silver, rings, and bracelets. And they made him very rich in silver, gold, onyx stones, bdellium. This is what happens when a king is crowned. We're going to see this many times throughout Yasher. Reminded me this morning, do you remember maybe you haven't seen it. One Night with the King. Wonderful movie about Esther. Hadassah. In it, she tells the king that you're supposed to bring gifts to the king. This is why she says it. You bring gifts to the new king. How interesting. Well, he's going to reign 30 years. He's going to die when they battle with Joseph again in Egypt. But right now, here it is, the 32nd year. Our 32nd year in our going down to Egypt. At that time, Pharaoh dies. Remember, 32nd year, Pharaoh was living when Joseph was brought in, and he was 30 years old. So now, 32nd year of our going down to Egypt, we came down 9 years after Joseph, 7 years, plus the 2 years, because it was the second year of the famine, 9 years. And now the king of Egypt's going to die. He loves Joseph. He's always loved Joseph. And he's going to have Joseph reign in, well, he's going to have his son reign, but look what it says. I think I've got it here. Here it is. And Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death to be a father to his son Magron, and that Magron should be under the care of Joseph and under his counsel. Egypt was blessed when Joseph was in Egypt. Egypt was blessed when Israel's seed was in Egypt. He ruled over the whole earth pretty much. And look what it says. Joseph was successful in all his ways, and Jehovah was with him, and Jehovah gave Joseph additional wisdom and honor and glory and love towards him in the hearts of the Egyptians and throughout the land. And Joseph reigned for the whole country 40 years. This is going to take us, here we were just talking about 32 years when we came to Egypt. Pharaoh died 32 years after we came to Egypt. So now he's going to reign for another 40 years. That's going to be our 72nd year in Egypt. In our 72nd year in Egypt, that is going to be the year that Joseph is going to die. Well, he's in Egypt. Magron's going to reign locally and, well, with the supervision of Joseph. But Joseph is going to expand Egypt's borders. Remember, he blessed Egypt. When that famine came, money, cattle, gold, silver, all the wealth of the nations came to him. And then they became our servants, Egypt's servants. I say our, Joseph's servants, Egypt's servants. Egypt was blessed. These are all the years that we were in Egypt, 102 years before another king's going to arise that doesn't know Joseph. Obviously, this king knows Joseph. This is the second king that we're going to live under. First Pharaoh, then his son Magron. There's going to be 3 more kings for a total of 5 kings before we leave Egypt. But there is going to arise a king. The 4th king is going to arise that does not know Joseph and never did. Doesn't know the history, apparently. So we're talking about the children of the East. They were coming to battle with us again. Esau's seed, the East seed. Look at this. Here's going to be even Ishmael's seed. Remember, Ishmael's seed is the son of Abraham. He had 12 sons. 12 sons. And they also came to them. It says as the sand of the sea. There it is. Sands of the sea. How much is the sand of the sea? I see hands of the sea or sands of the sea. I think the stars in the heavens, and I think, oh, uncountable. No, they're countable. About 800,000 men, infantry, cavalry. Joseph went forth, 800,000 men. Joseph goes forth with 600 men, sons of Israel and some Egyptians. We womp stomp them. Bela dies, their first king. Killed 200,000 men. How many did we lose? Not one man was missing from them, but of the Egyptians there fell 12 men. This is what we're looking at. Jehovah is going to bless us in these last days. We are going to be unstoppable. They installed a new king, Zarok, their second king. He dies. They do another one, Cushim. They want to say in Torah, again, this is the transliteration, Hushim. Hushim. Again, the H instead of the KH. They did CH. That's a little better, but KH might be better. He rules 21 years. Well, then we introduced all the people that came down to Egypt again. That was a little bit redundant in my mind. Then it says, Joseph lived in the land of Egypt 93 years. Remember, 93 plus 17 is going to be the 110 years that he's going to die at. He reigned over Egypt from 30 years old to 110 years old, 80 years. Joseph died in our 71st year of the Israelites going down to Egypt. But you know what? It's going to say, and I'll show you right here where it does say it, and it came to pass after the death of Joseph, all the Egyptians began in those days to rule over Israel's seed. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who reigned in his mother's stead, took all the laws of Egypt and conducted the whole government of Egypt under his counsel and reigned securely over his people. But he still knows Joseph. He knows Israel's seed. And Joseph is the first one of Israel's seed to die at 110 years old. All the other guys, tough guys, strong guys, undefeatable, they're still alive. Don't mess with them. We are going to be blessed from our 72nd year until our 103rd year, 102nd year. In other words, another 30 years. We're going to be blessed in Egypt. Watch what happens. And when the year came round, being the 72nd year from the Israelites going down to Egypt, after the death of Joseph, Zepho, Ben Eliphaz, Ben Esau fled from Egypt, he and his men, and they went away. Did he flee? Did they possibly let him go? I wonder, was it Joseph who had these men held captive? And now that Joseph's gone, they don't want to deal with him anymore? I wonder, how did 50 men escape? It says he came to Africa, which is Dinahaba. Africa and Dinahaba are synonymous. Isn't that interesting? Angeas, king of Africa, is Angeas, king of Dinahaba. Helps to put things together when we begin to see this. And he came to Africa, which is Dinahaba, to Angeas of Africa. And Angeas received him with great honor. Why? Because he's a son of Esau, and he likes Esau. And he made Zepho the captain of his host. Hear that? Zepho is becoming the captain of the host, his general. And Zepho found favor in the sight of Angeas, and in the sight of his people. And Zepho was captain of the host of Angeas, king of Africa, for many days. But you know what? Zepho has hatred in his heart toward Esau, or towards Israel's seed. Hates them. Zepho enticed Angeas, king of Africa, to collect all his army to go and fight the Egyptians and Jacob's seed to avenge on them the cause of his brethren. I think it's interesting, just to remind you, when we see Jacob's seed, think Israel's seed, because it seems to me every time it says Jacob's seed in Yasher, it's saying Israel's seed in Torah. But Angeas would not listen to Zepho to do this thing, for Angeas knew the strength of Jacob's seed and what they had done to his army in their warfare with Esau's seed. He remembers they got womp stomped. And Zepho was in those days very great in the sight of Angeas and in the sight of his people, and he continually enticed them to make war against Egypt, but they would not. Well, there's another story here about the land of Kittim. We're going to talk about the land of Kittim. There's some things I want you to see. This is Rome. Kittim is Rome. Here it is. And Kittim's seed are the Romim, who dwell in the land of Canopia by the river Tiber River. That's where they dwell, on the Tiber River. Well, I'm going to skip this, go to, what did I say I was going to go to? Into this chapter. I was going to actually skip a lot more of this, but I decided that I thought it was beneficial for us to see. 71st year in Egypt, he was 110. And it came to pass at that time that Pharaoh, king of Egypt, commanded his people to make for him a strong place in Egypt. Remember, this king knew Joseph. This is not the king that we're talking about. And he also commanded the sons, Jacob's seed, to assist the Egyptians in the building. And the Egyptians made a beautiful and elegant palace for a royal habitation. And he dwelt therein, and he renewed his covenant, and he reigned securely. Well, now here's the second son of Jacob to perish, to die. Zebulun ben Jacob, Yaakov, died in that year. That is the 72nd year, 1 year after Joseph, of our going down of the Israelites to Egypt. And Zebulun was 114 years old, and he was put in a coffin and given into the hands of his sons, his Banim. And in the 75th year, remember, let's keep track of these years. We have good years until 102. These are all good years for us. Maybe we're doing a little bit of stuff, but these aren't bad years. And in the 75th year, died his brother Simeon, second born of Joseph. He was 120 years old at his death, 120 years old. And he was also put in a coffin and given into the hands of his son. And Zepho ben Eliphaz ben Esau, captain of the host of Angeas, king of Dinahaba, king of Africa, was still daily enticing Angeas to prepare a battle to fight Jacob's seed in Egypt. And Angeas was unwilling to do so, for his servants had related to him all the might of Jacob's seed, which they had done unto them in the battle with Esau's seed. Yeah, they got womp stomped. And Zepho was in those days daily enticing Angeas to fight Jacob's seed in those days. And after some time, Angeas hearkened to the words of Zepho. Just kept on him, finally starting to give in. and consented to him to fight Jacob's seed in Egypt. And Angeas got all his people in order. A people numerous as the land, as the sand. There it is. A people as numerous as the sand. How much is that? A people as numerous as the sand. I always like to find these things, just to correct some of our understandings, which is upon the seashore. And he formed his resolution to go to Egypt to battle. And amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth, 15 years old, Balaam, son of Beor, was his name. And the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft. Son of Beor. What did I say about the son of Beor? I said, can this be the same Balaam mentioned in Numbers? Oh no, this is too good. Can this be the same Balaam mentioned in Numbers? It seems to be. If he's 15 years old in the 75th year, which we dwell in Egypt, see, yeah, it's got to put it all together. And we dwell there for 210 years. And we have 40 years in the wilderness. Then he will be 150 when Moses leads Israel out of Egypt. And 190, 40 years later, when he is asked by the king of Moab to curse Israel. We will see that this man changes his loyalties at the drop of a feather in the wind. Oh, this man is going to go from Angeas to Kittim to Egypt to, what is the town that Moses ruled in for so long?
Cush.
Cush. He's going to be in Cush. He's going to be, he and his sons in Egypt are the magicians that we're talking about. Isn't that incredible? This man is going to plague the life of Moses. In fact, he's going to try and kill Moses when Moses is 3 years old. Later on, we'll see that in a couple weeks. Oh my goodness, to see how these pieces begin to fit together. Then he sent messengers to Balaam, son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river in the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, look, a people have come to Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth and are settling next to me. This is, who was it that was saying this? He sent, King of Moab. It starts with a B. I don't remember what his name. Balak. Thank you, honey. Yeah, Balak. King of Moab. And the Midianites did it too. They asked for him to come also. All right, let's continue. And Angeas said to Balaam, conjure for us, I pray thee, with thy witchcraft, I think, that we may know who will prevail in this battle, to which we are now proceeding. And Balaam ordered that they should bring wax. And he made therefore a likeness of chariots and horsemen representing the army of Angeas and the army of Egypt. And he put them in a cunningly prepared waters that he had for that purpose. And he took in his hand the bough of a myrtle tree, and he exercised his cunning, and he joined them over the water. And there appeared unto him in the water the resembling images of the hosts of Angeas, Angeas' hosts, falling before the resembled images of the Egyptians and Jacob's seed. And Balaam told this thing to Angeas, and Angeas despaired and did not arm himself to go down to Egypt to battle, and he remained in his city. Ooh, look at what's going to happen now. Remember, Zepho has been working so hard to get Angeas and the people of Africa to fight the Egyptians and Israel's seed. And now it's not going to happen. What's he going to do? And when Zepho ben Eliphaz saw that Angeas despaired of going down to battle with the Egyptians, Zepho fled from Angeas, from Africa. And he went and came unto Kittim. Kittim. we talked briefly about what Kittim is. This is 12. Let's do this. I want to show you some stuff about Kittim. Edit, copy, put this in here, paste, and make it search for it. I'll come right to it. And then I want to go to Kittim. Let's see if we can find Kittim up here. Remember, it says CH. It looks like Chittim, doesn't it? But it's actually Kittim. It's the Het, Tav, Yod, Mem. Het, Tav, Yod, Mem. Kittim. C-H-I-T-T-I-M. Here, let's do this. Go to the top and then go down. Here's Kittim. Look at who he comes from. This is sons of Japheth. Gomer, Magdan, Yavan. Okay? Yavan has, his third born is Kittim. Kittim, Ben Yavan, Ben Japheth. Let's look at the next one. It says, and Kittim's seed are the Romim, who dwell in the valley of Canopia by the river Tabaru. Oh my goodness! What's going on here? Look at this. Let me go to my map. Here is Tiber River. This is what we're talking about right here. They're dwelling on the Tiber River. This is where Rome is. This is where the Vatican is. This is the place that we're talking about. This is where Esau's seed, who started down here in the land of Edom. Remember, we're talking about Zepho. Then he went to Egypt and he was held captive there. Then he went to Africa. It looks to me that Angeas rules from this portion of Africa right here, because we're going to see that Africa, Sardinia, and Rome are all working together in some of these coming chapters. Incredible. But here is him. This is Esau, son of Esau, is going to become the ruler of Rome. He's going to become the king of Rome. We're going to see it today. Let's take a look. Let's continue. Oh, I want to show you again some more of this, because let's look at the next thing where it talks about Kittim. Here it is. Oh, let me do this. I can pull this up, edit, copy. Let me go to here, and I better not do it on that one. Put it here, paste, enter. Here it is. Here is Rome, Vatican City, right here on the Tiber River. You can't really see the Tiber River. This is, I forget the name of that city, or the name of that island right now.
Capri?
No, it's not. That's not Capri. I forget what it is right now. We'll get it in a second. But here's Tuscany. Tuscany. Remember we talked about Rome and Tuscany, Kittim and what was the other name that we were just looking at? Kittim and Tubal. Tubal is Tuscany. This is where we talked about them stealing the daughters and bringing them to their land. They got them pregnant and ended up coming into covenant with Rome, with Kittim. And that's where the story, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, comes from. Oh, this is just amazing stuff to see how this all fits together. You know, there was a time where I was reading Yasher and kept saying, who's Kittim? I don't know who Kittim is. It's got to be important, but I don't know who it is. And it was just recently that I began to have my eyes open to who Kittim is. Kittim is Rome. When we talk about the ships of Kittim, coming against the sons of Israel in the last days. We're talking about Rome. Oh my goodness. Okay. Was there more? I think that was the last thing that I wanted to show you. Let's go back down to the verse that we left off on. Here. Sardinia. Thanks, honey. Yeah, Sardinia. That's the other town or the other country that we were talking about. And really, that was the portion that I skipped this morning. There was a woman involved from another. It's a long story. I didn't really want to go there. I didn't think it really added to our story very much. Normally, I would have left out all this stuff about Kittim and Angeas because I just didn't understand it well enough. But now it's starting to make sense. It says, and Zepho ben Eliphaz saw that Angeas despaired of going to battle with the Egyptians. And he fled and went to Kittim. That's the last verse we read. And all the people of Kittim received him with great honor. And they hired him to fight their battles all the days. And Zepho became exceedingly rich in those days. And the troops of the king of Africa still spread themselves in those days. And Kittim's seed assembled and went to Mount Capsia on account of the troops of Angeas, king of Africa. They're calling king of Africa instead of king of Dinahaba, who were advancing upon them. Let's pick up the battle further on. Verse 23. Here it is. And at the revolution of the year, the troops of Africa continued coming to the land of Kittim to plunder as usual. And Zepho ben Eliphaz heard their reports, and he gave orders concerning them, and he fought with them, and they fled before him, and he delivered the land of Kittim from them. And Kittim's seed saw the valor of Zepho. Hear that? And the Kittim's seed resolved, and they made Zepho king over them. Here it is. A son of Esau, a seed of Esau, is now the king of Rome, the king of Kittim. And he became king over them, and whilst they reigned, they went to subdue Tubal's seed and all the surrounding islands. They went to subdue Tubal. Remember I was just showing you Tuscany? That's Tuscany. Under Esau's reign, they are going to expand their territory down even into Africa. And their king Zepho went at their head, and they made war with Tubal and the islands, and they subdued them. And when they returned from battle, they renewed his government for him. And they built for him a very large palace for his royal habitation and seat, and they made a large throne for him. And Zepho reigned over the whole land of Kittim. Look what it says. And over the land of Adalia, 50 years. Isn't that interesting? Well, more sons are going to die. Here it is, 79th year. It's only been 8 years since Joseph died. In that year, being the 79th year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, died Reuben ben Yaakov in the land of Egypt. Reuben was 125 years old when he died. And they put him in a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his sons. In the 80th year, died his brother Dan. He was 120 years at his death, and he was also put in a coffin and given to the hands of his sons. And in that year died Cushim, king of Edom. He's like the third king of Edom. And after him reigned Hadad ben Bedad. Hadad ben Bedad for 35 years. And in the 85th year died Issachar, son of Yaakov. Issachar ben Yaakov in Egypt. And Issachar was 122 years old at his death. And he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his sons. The brothers are dying left and right here, aren't they? And in the 82nd year, remember, it's not going to get bad until when? We're going to see it's when all the brothers are gone. All the threats are removed. And in the 82nd year died Yasher, his brother. He was 123 years old at his death, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt in the hands of his sons. And the 83rd year died Gad. He was 125 years old at his death. He was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his sons. And it came to pass in the 84th year, that is the 50th year of the reign of Hadad ben Bedad, king of Edom, that Hadad assembled Esau's seed, and he got an army in readiness, about 400,000 men. They didn't say about the sands of the sea for this many. And he directed his way to the land of Moab. And he went to fight with Moab. Here's Esau. Let's look at the map. I want you to see what's going on here. I've got to go here. Go over to another part of the world here. And we're going to zoom in to this at 50%. Here is, well, let's actually go up a little bit further at 30%. Here is the Dead Sea. Nope, that's the Red Sea there. Here's the Dead Sea. This brook divides, this is a rock brook. This divides Seir, this is the land of Seir, there it says S-E-I-R, Edom, divides Edom from Moab. Now, many maps will put Moab out here because Moab was taken by the two Amorite kings that came from up north here and took their land. But Moab's dwelling basically in this area and in this area. This is their area. So he's gathering these 400,000 men, Hadad ben Bedad, to attack Moab. Moab's going to ask Midian, who's out here, to fight with them. Watch what happens. Another really interesting story. And it came to pass in the 84th year, in the 15th year of the reign of Hadad ben Bedad, king of Edom, that Hadad assembled Esau's seed and got a whole army in readiness, about 400,000 men, and he directed his way to the land of Moab. And he went to fight with Moab and to make them tributary to him. You beat them, and then they pay you to protect them from there on in. And Moab's seed heard this thing, and they were very much afraid. And they said to Midian's seed to assist them in fighting Hadad ben Bedad, king of Edom. And Hadad came unto the land of Moab, and Moab and Midian's seed went out to meet him, and they placed themselves in battle array against him in the field of Moab. Field of Moab? Yeah, field of Moab. And Hadad fought with Moab, and there fell of Moab's seed and Midian's seed many slain ones. About 200,000. 200,000 men. We keep thinking, where are all these men coming from? These guys are multiplying quickly. And the battle was very severe upon Moab. And when Moab's seed saw that the battle was sore upon them, look at this. Esau is coming to make Moab tributary. Midian is coming to help Moab, but now Moab sees it's going bad. Look what it says. And Moab saw the battle was sore upon them. They weakened their hands and turned their backs and left Midian seed to carry on the battle. The people who came to save them, they ran away and left those people to fight Edom. Oh, my goodness. And Midian's seed knew not the intentions of Moab, but they strengthened themselves in battle and fought with Hadad and all his host. And all Midian, what was that word for host? Zavot, host. Raya and I have been trying to remember that. Carissa and I. And all Midian fell before him. Midian fell before Edom, Esau's seed, because Moab, who they were trying to help, ran away. And Hadad smote all Midian, and with a heavy smiting, and he slew them with the edge of the sword. He left none remaining of those who came to assist Moab. And all Midian's seed had perished in the battle, and Moab had escaped. Hadad made all Moab at that time tributary to him, and they became under his hand, and they gave him a yearly tax, that's the tribute, as it was ordered. And Hadad turned and went back to his land. Now it says at the revolution of the year, when the rest of the people of Midian, we're talking about men, people, that were in the land, heard that all their brethren had fallen in battle with Hadad for the sake of Moab, because Moab's seed had turned their backs in battle and left Midian to fight, then 5 of Midian's princes resolved with the rest of their brethren who remained in their land to fight with Moab and to avenge the cause of their brethren. So now here's Midian, ticked at Moab, coming to wipe them out. But what Moab's going to do? And Midian's seed sent to all the brethren, all their brethren. Yeah, here it is. This is where I saw it. And Midian's seed sent to all their brethren. Who's their brethren? The east seed. Well, Midian is the son of Keturah, and that's when I said, oh my gosh, the east seeds are sons of Keturah. And the very next rest of the sentence, and all their brethren, and all Keturah's seed came to assist Midian in the fight with Moab. So now, look at all the people who are coming against Moab. What's going to happen? And Moab heard this thing, and they were greatly afraid that all the east seed had assembled together against them for battle. And Moab's seed sent a memorial to the land of Edom to Hadad ben Bedad, saying, "Come now unto us and assist us, that we will smite Midian." So now the ones that they were fighting against, they're looking to for help. For they all assembled together and have come against us with all their brethren, the east seed, to battle, to avenge the cause of Midian that was left in the battle. And Hadad ben Bedad, king of Edom, went forth with his whole army, and he went to the land of Moab to fight with Midian. And Midian and the east seed fought with Moab in the field of Moab, and the battle was very fierce between them. It's like the battlegrounds. Let's go to the battlegrounds. Hey, you want to go to the battlegrounds this weekend? It'll be fun. And Hadad smote Midian's seed and the east seed with the edge of the sword. And Hadad at that time delivered Moab from the hand of Midian. And those that remained of Midian and the east seed fled before Hadad and his army. And Hadad pursued them to their land and smote them with a very heavy slaughter, and the slain fell in the road. And Hadad delivered Moab from the hand of Midian, for all Midian's seed had fallen by the edge of the sword. And Hadad turned and went back to his land. And from that day forth, Midian's seed hated Moab's seed, because they had fallen in battle for their sakes. And there was a great and mighty enmity between them all the days. Well, look what it says. All the days. Let me tell you about it. And all that were found in Midian, in the road of the land of Moab perished by the sword of Moab, and all that were found in Moab on the road of the land of Midian perished by the sword of Midian. They hated one another. All you got to do is come to their land and you're going to be killed. Either way. Thus did Midian unto Moab, and Moab unto Midian for many days. Now, it says, and it came to pass at that time Judah ben Yaakov died in Egypt in the 86th year. We're only up to 86th year. This is 15 years after Joseph died. Going down to Egypt. And Judah was 129 years old at his death, probably the strongest of all the brothers. And they embalmed him and put him in a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his sons. And now, the 89th year died Naphtali. He was 132 years old, and he was put in a coffin and given into the hands of his sons. Okay, we're going to skip down again. And it came to pass in the 91st year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, in the 30th year of the reign of Zepho. Remember, Zepho's reigning from where? From Rome. Zepho ben Eliphaz ben Esau over the Kittim seed. And the Kittim and Africa's seed came upon Kittim seed to plunder them as usual, but they had not come upon them for these 13 years. And they came to them in that year, and Zepho, son of Eliphaz, went out to them with some of his men and smote them desperately. And the troops of Africa fled from Zepho, and his slain fell before him. And Zepho and his men pursued them, going on and smiting them until they were near unto Africa. Did they get into boats? How did they do that? And Angeas, king of Africa, heard the thing which Zepho had done, and it vexed him exceedingly. And Angeas was afraid of Zepho all his days. Well, I'm covering a lot more than I thought I was going to get covered today. Let's get rid of that. All right, I want to go now to Exodus 1. Because we're going to start to see a new king that is going to arise in Egypt who does not know Joseph. Who does not know Joseph's seed, Jacob's seed. Let's go to Exodus 1 through 14. Here we are. Now these are the names of Israel's seed who came to Egypt, each man and his household. Each man and his household, we're talking about men household, men, came to Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, all these were the descendants. Look at what it says. It says these were the descendants. I want to look at this carefully. First of all, let's do this. Let me do this. I want to introduce Exodus. Here is how do the Bible books get their names? Ancient Near Eastern practice of naming a book after the words or phrase in its opening sentence. Let me give the opening lines of all 5 books of Torah by way of example. This is interesting. Bereshit, in the beginning, starts with a bet. Elohim, in the beginning created Elohim, the heavens and the earth. Here's Exodus. Ve'elah, Shemot, Bnei Israel, Ha-Banim, Mitzrayim, at Yaakov. And these are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Yaakov. What's significant about this is it starts out with the, and, right here, and these are the names. The Vav is kind of an addition to the extra work that we've already covered. So we had Genesis, and now we're going to talk about Exodus. We're going to see the same thing when we leave Exodus and go to Leviticus. A Vav. There it is again, the Vav. Vayikra. Then we have Vadabar. Again, Vav, going from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Exodus to Leviticus, and from Leviticus to Numbers. But, you know what I find interesting is that we don't have a Vav. We talk about, what is the Torah? The Torah is the words of Yehovah. The very, what's that?
Teachings. Sorry.
Yeah, well, the teachings, the instructions of Yehovah given through Moses. But when we went through Deuteronomy last time, we saw so many discrepancies, and it's very troubling to me to see all those discrepancies, changes from what it says in the first 4 books. What's up with that? But then you begin to see, remember, this is Vav, 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 but there's no Vav in Exodus. Well, there's teachers that will tell you that, well, this is the book covers, don't you know? The book cover in the front has got something attached to it, but the book cover in the back, which they try to call Deuteronomy, doesn't have an attachment. Why doesn't it have an attachment? Look at what the words say for Deuteronomy. These are the words which spake Moses to all Israel. I put that in my memory banks just to remember. You know, it's troubling to me. I've been taught my whole life that Torah is the first 5 books. But is Torah the first 5 books? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Could Torah be the first 4 books, the words of Yehovah, given through Moses? Well, you know, I don't know. I still want to make Deuteronomy Yehovah's word. But I just see so much discrepancies in Deuteronomy. Well, that said, let's go back to what we're talking about here. I guess I could say much more about that. I've got lots of notes on it, but I think we've got it covered well enough. I want to go back to verse 5. All these were the descendants of Yaakov. We're talking about 70 people. Look, it says Yaakov were 70 persons. All these were descendants of Yaakov. Well, we just named 12. We didn't name 70, did we? Because the sons weren't all named. There's one daughter, Dinah, and one adopted daughter, Sarah. Adopted by, who was she adopted by? She was adopted by Genesis 46. She was adopted by Sarah. Where is Sarah? She's in pink. There she is. Adopted by Yasher. But she wasn't a descendant of Yaakov. Why is she listed? Is that important? Look what it says. Here's 5. And all the souls, all the nephesh, they're not calling them seed, they're calling them nephesh, that came from his Yarek, Yaakov's Yarek. Remember Yarek? The private parts. Euphemism for the generative parts. They call them nephesh. Why? Because there's women listed with them. Dinah, in particular. Another one that's important is probably going to be Jochebed. She's not listed at all. But now we got Sarah, the daughter of Yasher, who is listed. Part of the 70 souls. So what does this verse actually say? I thought I put a list in here. I guess I can just read it. And all the souls that came from Yaakov's Yark were 70 souls, Nephesh. For Joseph was in Egypt already. That's what we're talking about. All those who came, all the souls that came out. What's the word that they use there? H3. Yatsa, to go. Came out of his Yark. Yeah, we're talking about descendants. We're talking about people who actually came forth from him. He gave birth to them. And Joseph died. All his brothers and all that generation. You know what? When I read that, I read and Joseph died. It says, and Joseph died. All his brothers and all that generation. See, that's what we've been covering in Yasher this morning. Joseph died. And then all his brothers died, one by one, by one, by one. Now we're coming to the last one. The last one's going to be Levi. He's the last one that's left. And Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. And Israel's seed were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty in the land, and the land was filled with them. See, they're still being blessed. We're still living in our houses. We still have the land that was given to us by Joseph. Perhaps we still have the provisions still coming into us. But certainly we had plenty of time with the land that we were given by Pharaoh and by Joseph to create our own provisions by now. And he said unto his people, look, the people, Israel's seed, are more and mightier than we. He knows we're mighty. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And it happened in the event of war that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of our land. We like these guys staying in our land. We're making money off of them. They're helping us. Therefore they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. Did that happen overnight? Let's just set taskmasters over them. Are they going to go for that? We're going to see. It's a process. They tricked us into serving them. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were in dread of Israel's seed. They know that we are dangerous. So the Egyptians, I wonder if they know that Israel is dangerous now. I doubt it. So the Egyptians made Israel's seed serve them with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, in brick, in all manner of service in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. Well, that's all we're going to cover. There's still so much more that's got to happen before we can come back to the Torah. Here it is. This is Yasher 63. It's probably going to be the last one that we're going to cover today. And in the 93rd year died Levi, Ben Yaakov, in Egypt. And Levi was 137 years old when he died. Isn't that interesting? The one who was probably more inclined, remember, he was the priest. He was one that was given the priestly duties. We're going to see that it's going to be the sons of Levi that never served Pharaoh. Isn't that interesting? All the other sons of Jacob served Pharaoh, but Levi and his seed did not serve Pharaoh. And it came to pass after the death of Levi, when all Egypt saw that Jacob's seed, Israel's seed, the brethren of Joseph were dead, all the Egyptians began to afflict Jacob's seed. What year? 93rd year. 93rd year. This is 22 years after the death of Joseph. Now the heat's starting to get turned up. Watch what happens. And it came to pass after the death of Levi, when Egypt saw that Jacob's seed and his brother, the brethren of Joseph, were dead, all the Egyptians began to afflict Jacob's seed and to embitter their lives from that day unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. They began to do it. And they took from them their hands all the vineyards and fields which Joseph had given unto them. They took their land. They took their fields. They took their homes. All the elegant houses in which the people of Israel lived, and all the fat of Egypt is being taken from them. The Egyptians took all from Jacob's seed in those days. And the hand of Egypt became more grievous in those days against Israel's seed. And the Egyptians injured the Israelites until Israel's seed were wearied for their lives on account of the Egyptians. And it came to pass in those days, in the 102nd year of Israel's going down to Egypt, here it is, the 102nd year of Israel's going down to Egypt, that Pharaoh, king of Egypt, remember they're all called Pharaoh, king of Egypt, died. And Milau, his son, reigned in his stead. And all the mighty men of Egypt and all that generation which knew Joseph and his brethren died in those days. Hear that? This is what we're talking about in verse, here it is, 8. Now there arose a new king in Egypt who did not know Joseph. They do not know Joseph. Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. That's what we just read. There arose a new king who did not know Joseph. His name is Bela. And his son reigned in his stead. Bela, his son, reigned in his stead, and all the mighty men of Egypt and all that generation which knew Joseph and his brethren died in those days. And another generation rose up in their stead, which had not known the Jacob's seed and all the good which they had done to them, and all their might. We forget. We don't know history. We forget things. Remember, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. We've got to know the history. That's why we want to learn this stuff, so we don't repeat the same mistakes. Therefore, all Egypt began from that day forth to embitter the lives of Jacob's seed and to afflict them with all manner of hard labor, because they had not known their ancestors who had delivered them in the days of the famine. They didn't know it. They didn't know all the good that we did. But now look what it says. And this was also from Jehovah. For, look at now, they changed it from Jacob's seed to Israel's seed. And it was also from Jehovah for Israel's seed to benefit them in the latter days, in order that all the children of Israel might know Yahovah, their Elohim. I want to show you something. I skipped it, but I want to come back. 102nd year. This is 9 years after Levi dies. That finally this Pharaoh is going to die. But which Pharaoh was this? Let's think about the pharaohs that we've had so far. I put a list together here. I'll be able to help you. This is the death of the third Pharaoh that we have lived under. We, Israel's seed, have lived under. Remember, the first Pharaoh died. That was the Pharaoh who took Joseph out of jail. Died in our 32nd year in Egypt. And that's when Magron, here, I'll read it to you. And it came to pass in the 32nd year of the Israelites going down to Egypt. Remember, Joseph came down 9 years before that. In the 32nd year of our going down to Egypt, that in the 71st year of the life of Joseph, in that year died Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Magron, his son, reigned in his stead. That was the man who Joseph was to be a father to. It says it in verse 2. And Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death, to be a father to his son Magron. And Magron should be under the care of Joseph and under his counsel. And all Egypt consented to this thing, that Joseph should be king over them. For all the Egyptians loved Joseph, as of their heretofore, only Magron, son of Pharaoh, sat upon his father's throne, and he became king in those days in his father's stead. Magron was 40 years old. There it is, 40 years old. What are we talking about? The 72nd year, 71st year? Came to pass, 32nd year. 32nd year. Let's remember that. 32nd year, he's going to rule 40 years. It's going to be 70. In our 72nd year, we're going to get another king. Magron was 41 years old when I guess I skipped a verse. And Egypt consented to this thing, and Joseph should be a king over them, for all the Egyptians loved Joseph. And he became king in his father's stead. Magron was 40 years old when he began to reign, and 40 years he reigned in Egypt. So when he's done reigning, 32 plus 40 is going to be 72. That would be our 72nd year in Egypt. There's going to be another king that's going to come there. And all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was a custom to do in Egypt, to every king that reigned over them. Remember, just like in the Philistine country, it was Avimelech. Everybody became an Avimelech. In Egypt, everybody became a pharaoh. So now, 40 years later, Magron, the one that Joseph was a father to, is going to die. Joseph died a year before that. And Magron ruled 40 years and died in the 72nd year. Joseph died in our 71st year when he was 110. Joseph died one year earlier. The king who took Magron's place would not have known Joseph, would have known Joseph. Yeah, he had to have known Joseph. Magron was 80. His son knew Joseph. Joseph was raised with him. But now, 30 years later, 72 to 102, there's another king 30 years now that's coming. This guy that knew Joseph is going to reign for 30 years, but in the 102nd year, that's when this king arises. But now in the 102nd year, a new king arises who never knew any of Israel's seed and the good they had done for Egypt. That's 4 kings that we've been through. There's going to be 5 kings altogether. And another generation rose up in their stead, which had not known Jacob's seed and all the good that they had done for them. and all their might in Egypt. Therefore all Egypt began from that day forth to embitter the lives of Jacob's seed, and to afflict them with all manner of hard labor, because they had not known their ancestors who had delivered them in the days of the famine. And this was also from Yehovah. I guess I read some of this. I must have gone back up. This was from Yehovah for Israel's seed, to benefit them in the latter days, in order that all Israel might know Yehovah their Elohim. Up until now, Israel has been serving Yehovah. Now Israel is going to be forced to serve Pharaoh. You know what? You got to choose this day whom you're going to serve. The Levites never chose to serve Pharaoh, but so many of us did. We'd been in Egypt too long and forgotten Yehovah's ways, his statutes, his judgments, and his ordinances. And in order to know the signs and mighty wonders which Yehovah would do in Egypt on account of his people Israel, in order that Israel's seed might fear Yehovah, their Elohim, Yehovah Elohim, of their ancestors, and walk in all his ways, they and their seed after them all their days. And Melal was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 94 years. And all Egypt, hear that? 94 years. 20 years old. That means he was 11 when Levi died. Did he know Levi at 11 years old? No, he didn't know him. Did not know Levi. He reigned for 94 years. That's a long time. So from 102nd to 94, our 102nd year in Egypt, add 94 to that for how long he's going to reign, that comes to 196 years in Egypt. But we're going to be in Egypt for 210 years. There's going to be yet another king that's going to come when this man goes. Ooh, let's wait and see what that next king is going to be like. This king is awful. Milo, not a nice man. Well, I'm going to stop here. This is it's 1:34, and I really didn't prepare much beyond this, so I choose to really stop here at this point. It says skip to chapter 64. I just might want to do the rest of this chapter now that we're starting to get to know who Kim is and who Angeas, king of Africa, king of Dinahaba, is. It might be worth us. I really want to see what's going to happen with Zepho, the king of Rome. I'll try and figure that out for you for next week. Let's stop here. Thank you for joining me yet again today. I know this was kind of an unusual class. We covered a lot of stuff that didn't have anything to do with Israel. It had a lot to do with Kittim. It had a lot to do with Angeas. It had a lot to do with Esau. But you know what? Understanding who these players are in this drama that is unfolding before us is so very important for our safety in these last days. And I don't want to skip something right now that could possibly benefit us. So let's stop here. We'll pick it up again next week. Hey, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate you guys listening. Catch y'all later. Love you now. Bye-bye.